All right, so usually I'm not one for conspiracy theories, but this one I just had to indulge. The rest of the world, not just the country, the rest of the world is talking about it currently. So I figured I'd give my little 2 cents. Now, mind you, let me give a disclaimer. I am not an investigative journalist, right? Um, None of us have seen the files. But what in the wilderness is going on with this whole Epstein situation? So let's talk about it, right? So, another disclaimer. Here's where I'm at with it. I don't care if it's a Democrat in it. I don't care if it's a Republican in it. I don't care if it was the Pope or some other religious leader in it. I don't care who it is. If you were somebody who was dealing in a inappropriate manner with an underage minor, you need to go to jail. If you were somebody who knew that Epstein was dealing within inappropriate or in an inappropriate way with a minor, you need to go to jail. If you're somebody who profited in some way, shape, or fashion by Epstein dealing with minors in an inappropriate fashion, you need to go to jail. So that is the disclaimer. I don't care who it is in the files. Once the files get out, you need to go to jail. Um, and the other thing I'm going to say is release all of the files, just redact the victims' names, and let the chips fall where they may. If it's unfounded, meaning that there's nobody, if there's not any more criminal charges because nobody committed an additional crime, then there we go. It's out. It's transparent. Boom. But at this point, release all the unredacted files, not that little grand jury blah 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 BS they talking about. Okay, so let's backtrack. Now that we got that full disclaimer out there, it smells like a cover up. That's what it smells like to me. It's not a rocket scientist to see that it smells like a cover up because here's the thing. Oh, other disclaimer. If you're like, well, there was previous administrations of Democrats and they could have released the files and nobody cared, you know what? You might be right on that. But here we are now. I could be one to admit that I wasn't really paying that much attention to the story. Like, I heard about Epstein, I heard what he did was deplorable. I didn't know that much about, uh, I can't say her name, Ghislaine, there we go, Maxwell. I knew that she was involved and ended up getting convicted and arrested, right, of being a pedo. And from I saw some of the victims like videos and stuff talking about how she did it to them too. So meaning not only was she instructed and was finding these people, but she also was a part of the act. So that was to the extent prior to this whole big blow up that I knew about it. Should I have paid attention more to it? Yeah, you're right. Should the rest of the world have paid attention more to it? Yeah, you're right. Did other administrations fumble this in the past? Yeah, you're right. But here we effing are now. And I'm not sleeping on it now. So now that we covered all of that, let's talk about what's going on today. So now that we're there, we back up about a few months back, not even a few months, the election. This guy, your big dog, he's not everybody's big dog, but let's pretend he is your big dog, Mr. Donald, whatever Trump, did an entire campaign. That wasn't the only part of his campaign, I will say, but he did an entire campaign talking about he was going to release these files, right? Well, here we are. It is August 6th and no files. So that's just a fact. Um, the other element is it's starting to look like he don't want to release the files because, as you know, he's dropped files just out random over the past few months. He's dropped MLK files and other files, but you don't want to release these files right here, big guy. Why don't you want to release these files? I have some theories we'll get into. And again, just to mention, to this date, he has not been founded or convicted of doing anything inappropriate with minors in this regard, per se, right? Definitely been held legally liable and sued and charged with other crimes of doing inappropriate things, but that's not this. So we'll stay on this. Um, then we get into this administration now, where he essentially has his, not even essentially, it's literally his personal attorneys is the AG, which, hey, he got them into the position, right? Wouldn't have been my choice. But there we go. His AG, the head of the FBI, is another one of his boys. And the list is kind of endless, right? The DOJ, the head of the DOJ, and all his either personal attorneys or people he has very close relationships with, which is highly problematic to say the least, right? Especially in this situation. I don't know if that's ever been done before, but if it has been, it's still highly problematic, right? To be a personal lawyer of somebody when there's supposed to be a separation of powers with all these entities, right? Okay, but Pam Bondi was like, "Oh, we gonna release the files." She was literally parading around like binders with influencers talking about, "Here's the files. They're coming at you. They're coming at you." Fast forward to a couple weeks ago, then it's like, well, actually, there's not a list. There's no files. There's nothing to see here. And everybody was like, what the F? Like, a literal kindergartner could just, an actual kindergartner could tell you that there is a list of something of some sort, right? He wasn't doing all this by himself. He was trafficking young underage minors, so he was trafficking them to who? Ghost? That's what you're trying to tell us? Like to Ghost? Nobody? Infinity and beyond? So all 1,000 alleged victims was just himself? That makes no logical sense, right? So then everybody, and it's not just me, but just like everybody was like, what? Like to say like, hey, it's, we found no additional criminal charges that we could prove. Okay, maybe people would have swallowed that pill. Probably not, but maybe. But to literally say that there is no list is baffling. Okay, then you could just take a 2 minute dive to be like, well, how did this man make his money? Well, apparently Epstein would help people evade taxes and big rich billionaires, right? I think there's a lot of trafficking up in there too, but like I said, I'm not an investigative journalist and I'm not a lawyer or a prosecutor. So there's that. This is just me and my 2 cents, my common sense of what's taking place there. But they said there was no files. Okay. And then now it seems like we're getting further and further away from that statement because we went from there's no files to I'm going to send my previous personal attorney to go interview with a convicted, not waiting in trial, not we're investigating, but a convicted. And mind you, this conviction took place in the previous administration. We're talking about Trump's previous administration, right? So there's nobody to point the finger at but himself. As far as the sentencing, that investigation, all that. So you can't blame Biden. You can't, like, what are we talking about here? It happened during your administration, not the whole process, but at least that conviction definitely happened during that time. um, Saying that we want to dig deeper. Well, you've had the information. Like, none of this is actual logical sense, what they're telling us. I hope you're paying attention. This is like a load of crap. This is like the kindergartner who has cookies all over their mouth. And then they go to the parent and say, I didn't eat the cookies. Like, what? What are you talking about? So they had a meeting. This is about a week ago. Had a meeting for 8 hours, 2 days with Zane Maxwell, happens to be, Trump's previous personal attorney, which is there's that. Um, and then a convicted pedophile gets transferred from the security, the facility that she was currently at to a low security facility. And that has never happened before, as far as anybody in the public knows. And in order for that to happen, you have to get like some type of a huge waiver. So how did she get that? Is crazy, right? So there's that. We'll come back to that in a second. Then there's reporting that Trump's name is in the files, which is just like that's kind of logical. You're gonna be in the files because you were publicly his best friend for how many years? Like what? Like what are we talking about? But not just him. Right? We're gonna be fair. It wasn't just him. There's questions, big questions marks about Bill Clinton and his involvement. Which, like I said, if he's up in them, lock him up. I ain't got no issue with it. Take his butt to jail. There's other billionaires that they're talking about, millionaires they're talking about, or other politicians that could possibly lock them all up. But none of those people are the president right now. So we're just gonna talk about this. And some of you mightn't follow me, and that's fine because this is just principle. I thought the principle was that people aren't allowed to mess with children and get away with it. And I'm not saying that Trump is doing that, so we're clear, right? But I am saying that he's hiding something. That's just my personal opinion because why are you going this hard out of your way to make sure that these things don't come out when you could, at a click of a button and a sign of a pen, could just release it all? Because for me, if like somebody's saying, hey, Trump, we think you might be involved, the first thing that I'm going to do is release the files so we can just clear it all up. And I don't want to hear, oh, well, those files were doctored up by such and such. Technically, didn't those files kind of start in your administration? So, like, that doesn't make any sense. Then there's another report out there that Pam Bondi, who was another previous attorney by Trump, instructed the DOJ around the clock, like 1,000 employees, to redact his name. Why do you want your name redacted from the files if you didn't do anything wrong, right? We're talking about somebody who says you didn't do anything wrong. So if you didn't do anything wrong, why do you need your name redacted? Yeah, there might be things in there that are salacious. Salacious stuff is not criminal, though, right? So, like, why are we that doesn't make any sense, right? That doesn't make any sense. So lots of things that don't make any sense. Magically, Lizane got transferred like a couple days ago after a meeting, right? And that meeting only came after everybody was blowing up about these files. You're trying to get grand jury testimony to be released, which everybody knows that's not happening. And there's nothing in the grand jury but two witnesses that were police officers who did a summary of what took place. So that doesn't add up, right? Okay, let's just add in that. And then tonight, there was supposed to be an alleged meeting between all of them to have a game plan on how they're going to discuss communications surrounding around this whole Epstein debacle that is not going away. And I'm happy that this is not going away, right? And then let's talk about this, because this is what matters the absolute most. The absolute most, what matters the most is the victims. So you met with Lizane, but there's been no meeting with any victims. Like, if you're really trying to get, let's just pretend you're really trying to get to the bottom of this, and you're really trying to figure out what or who or something is in it, right? Well, wouldn't the first person you go back to is interview the victims or the attorneys of the victims? Like, isn't that just kind of like a logical step one? To our knowledge, that has not happened. So that's interesting, right? Then let's talk about how the leader of the House literally ended the session early and sent people on vacation because he didn't want to have to take a vote on releasing all the Epstein files because it was a bipartisan effort to release these files. He thinks this is going to go away by September. Newsflash, buddy, people are still going to win in 4 weeks. So there's that. Like I said, there's something smelling in the air, and it smells like a cover-up of some sort. So do I think they're covering it up because they don't want whatever is in there to be out? Yes. Do I necessarily think that he has done something? It's not far-fetched, right? But then you would have to be like, well, why wasn't he locked up before if he did something, right? Well, I don't know that answer, right? We don't know that answer. But I think what I think at a bare minimum, which is very logical, is him being complicit in Epstein's actions. Meaning, let me ask you this question, and then we're gonna hop off in a second. But all right, you mean to tell me that you wouldn't know that your best friend is a pedophile? Like, that's like actually wild. Like, just think about it in real life. You're not gonna know that your best friend is a pedophile, and you guys are buddies. Everybody talks about y'all hang out on a day-to-day basis. Y'all boys, y'all party together, travel together, do business together. He be popping up at your office, you be popping up at his office. Like, y'all like thick as thieves for like 15 years, and you mean to tell me there was no sign whatsoever that he was a pedophile? And then please tell me you guys do not believe this, because it doesn't even line up. The timeline does not line up with what it is that he's saying. As far as, oh, I found out he was a creep and got rid of him. He stole my employees. Well, why are you having 16-year-old females in a spa? Like, we're regular people. Let's sit here and let's ask these questions. Why would somebody have 16-year-old females in a golf club spa? Are you letting your daughter go work at a golf club spa? No. And purposely finding people, not saying he did, but purposely finding people who don't have fathers in their life, who have messed up home lives, who are underprivileged for whatever, like in a golf club, country club spa where you know it ain't nothing but old farts and men for the most part in there. Why is that happening? And then stole your employees, like that's like they're not property. So like this whole little thing about that. Then there was a report that said that even that was a lie. They lined up the timeline with what he's talking about, and then when the supposed when Epstein's actual membership was still in place and active, and it just doesn't make sense. So my theory you're asking me is like, what do I think happened? I think at bare minimum, Trump knew what Epstein was doing and just he did a little winky eye and turned a blind eye and said, don't bring it over here, right? Which that's just a horrible political move, right? There's this other wild theory, which is not even that wild anymore, about Melania. And I hate to talk about people's wives, but some of this is just public knowledge about her being a model and posing on different covers and being naked. And she's also from another country. Like, that's right up kind of Epstein's alley. Like, and like Epstein setting up how to meet Melania and that whole spiel, and maybe that's what he doesn't want to know. I'll tell you what, I don't actually know what he doesn't want us to know. But what I do know is he doesn't want us to know something. And that in itself is a problem, right? And then beyond that, let's go back to what about the victims? What about the victims? Obviously, there's safety reasons why they don't want to talk. There's, emotionally recover reasons why they don't want to talk. But they're speaking out through the representatives. And I feel like that is who we should be asking these questions to if they don't want to release the files. Let's start asking the victims. Like unanimously, majority of the victims are like, release all the files. Just take our names out. Release all the files so these powerful men who are abusing children don't get away with it. And we're talking about pardoning Glazane is insane. Like, it's actually insanity. When you just go and Google and YouTube some of these stories of these survivors talking about what her involvement was. That's somebody we're going to pardon? No. What it seems like is you told her to say the magic words, which is, "Oh, I don't think Trump was involved," right? And you're trying to make that the story. But America is a lot of things. There's a lot of things we got to work on too. But I feel like this is the line. We don't F with kids. What are your thoughts?